Hey, welcome to episode number 139 of Decentralized Revolution, a podcast from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. I'm Aaron Harris. I'm your host, but joining me is Nate Thurston. How are you, Nate?
Doing great, Aaron. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. We got things kind of kicked off after my paternity hiatus last week. Nate is, of course, co-host of Good Morning Liberty, and I'm thrilled to have him on. He is going to be, we're going to be kind of the main team, but we're going to have people rotate in and out, I think, according to how schedules go. And with the relaunch last week, we wanted to have on Angela McCardle, but I think she was on a plane at this time last week or just got off one. So she was able to make it today. So Angela, welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me.
That's good. There's so much going on, and I'm sure people have a lot of questions. So if you are watching this live, you can comment through YouTube, and I think the Twitter X thing will let you push comments that gets to me. So I'll keep an eye on that. So if anybody has questions, we'll possibly entertain those. But there's a lot going on this week with Elon and his new party thing. Also, I know you've been working on the Roger Ver, Ian Freeman crypto stuff. So, and there's other stuff too. So what do you want to jump into right off the bat?
I mean, I really want to talk about the crypto prisoners thing. I think it's really important. You know, we're calling them crypto hostages, Bitcoin prisoners of war. You know, basically Donald Trump made some promises at the National Convention, you know, and one of those, which I think got a little bit overlooked, is that he was going to release the Bitcoin hostages, people who were locked up by the Biden administration. And understandable, everybody's really focused on the debt. They're really focused on foreign policy and, you know, the violence going on between Iran and Israel, wondering what our role is going to be in that. But there are some things happening or not happening here at the United States that we really have the power to impact, like here and now. And that is getting these guys out of prison, getting charges dropped, you know, because some of them are not in prison yet, but it's looking not so great, you know, lobbying, basically advocating on their behalf. And that's what I've been up to.
Yeah. So for those, obviously our audience is going to be more tuned in to like Bitcoin and that world than maybe a general audience. But for those who may not know, like how different was the Biden administration versus maybe Obama and Trump one? Yeah. What exactly is going on, and why do we have this class of people that are in jail for crypto related stuff?
So there's two things that I think are pretty important. One is they didn't fully understand what Bitcoin, what blockchain, what cryptocurrency is. And the second is, to the extent that they did understand it, the Biden administration, they hate it. They are like, if we're decentralized revolution, they are centralized revolution. They hate that anybody could be using Bitcoin instead of fiat. So they really cracked down. They had this guy in the administration named Gary Gensler, who was just like the Bitcoin devil. And they had this plan, Operation Choke Point 2.0, that said they were essentially going to crack down on cryptocurrency, and they were going to regulate via prosecution. And if there's a gray area, they're just going to throw the book at you, lock you up, hit you with fines, you know, do anything and everything they can to halt the progress of cryptocurrency. So
is this like the traditional banking financial industry that is pushing for that, or FBI, or who do you think is driving that?
It was the Biden administration. Like, that was their policy. And I mean, I'm sure that banks were happy to go along with it, but they, I think on this, sort of go with the flow. They're all jumping in, you know, now that Donald Trump and JD Vance have said Operation Choke Point 2.0 is over. They're all jumping in and saying, hey, you know, put your Bitcoin with us. You know, banks, we're going to start catering to the cryptocurrency community. I really think it's just about centralized control. You know, that's what communism light wants. That's what Biden was all about.
Yeah. Nate, what do you know about all this? What questions you got for Angela?
First off, I wanted to say I listened to Lynn Ulbricht on Michael Malice's show today, and Angela, she did give you credit for getting Ross out, and
Nice.
so that was it. I don't know if you heard it yet.
I
But
haven't. I heard about it though.
yeah, it was a really good. I almost cried a couple times, honestly, when she was
Mhm.
talking about finding out he was getting out, and then when he finally got out, and so that was a great accomplishment, and that's that's it's way bigger than what I just said it was, obviously for Ross and for Lynn. When it comes to guys like Ian Freeman, who I was telling Aaron earlier, I actually had a show on Free Talk Live for a couple of years, and because Ian was looking for people to fill in when he was going to prison. Like, people aren't as familiar with
Right.
that case, and honestly, I'm not as familiar with the Roger Ver case. Like, I've heard that a lot. I think just being in the libertarian circles and going to these conventions and stuff, I just saw Free Ross all over the place. But it's like the other like guys like Ian haven't gotten as much airplay from
Yeah.
libertarians as he should have. So could you let people know about what happened with Ian?
Yeah. So, Ian was raided by the feds in a really horrific way. And there's a really good video on it if you go to freeiannow.org over running an unregulated Bitcoin ATM. Now, there are lots of Bitcoin ATMs that are unregulated or less regulated. It's a gray area. But Ian was very outspoken, an outspoken critic of the federal government. And the feds hated him. So they cracked down on him really hard, and along with several other individuals, including Aria DeMezzo, the Crypto Six. I don't recall all of their names, but these people got locked up for a varying amount of time. Aria was in, I think, for a little over a year. She might have gotten out slightly less than a year, but she was sentenced for more than 12 months. And Ian had a 12-year sentence, and he served a little bit of that so far. I think it was 12 or 8 years. They're starting to kind of gel together. I read like 6 different cases today. But yeah, it's over a Bitcoin ATM. There were allegations that he had run romance scams, which is totally false. He didn't scam anyone. But just like any website, any piece of machinery, someone else can come along if there's public access available, and they can use it to scam someone, to hurt someone. And there were people who used his ATM who, shouldn't have done what they've done. But that's like charging Mark Zuckerberg for something that someone does on Facebook. It's wrong. There were a couple of people who we think scammed other people, and they used Ian's Bitcoin ATM. But, Ian was totally innocent. He was totally innocent. He didn't hurt anyone. And he does not deserve to be in prison, So we need to wrap our arms around this man. We need to rally, sign his petition, please. We need to show the administration that there is a strong desire to get him free. That's a really important thing right now. And it's something that we should really be pushing as we get closer to the midterms.
Yeah. So if you go to that, I think I've still got it up on the screen, the freeiannow.org. And then at the top of the page, you can go to do the petition. And so one thing that I think that I get the feeling that some people in the Libertarian Party and the libertarian world, I think we kind of missed a moment for the Bitcoin world.
Yeah.
It started in 2013 or 14 or whatever. I remember back then, like, trying to figure out how to do it. I'm not a tech guy or a computer guy. And I was like, oh, this is going to be big, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I dropped it. So I could be in a much bigger house right now had I stuck through it and figured it out. But the libertarian part of me, like, immediately was like, oh, if this is what it looks like, this is really big. And I think given who we had as chair of the LP back then and kind of their, the way they used to run things, I just don't think they got it. And so I think we missed the opportunity. And I know that while you were chair, we were trying to make some inroads and stuff like that. But what do you think is the state of like the Bitcoin world and even the small L libertarian world, and what are the prospects for the future, I guess?
Well, we should be working more closely together. I mean, like the Bitcoin libertarian Venn diagram isn't like a straight circle, but it's pretty close. They're very economically literate. Most of them oppose, United States intervention in foreign wars and conflicts. They understand it from a financial perspective. Like they get the debt crisis, and that's why they're all in on Bitcoin. I think that we should be recruiting from the Bitcoin community. One of the things that I've posed to them is you should be putting forward a Bitcoiner for the president or vice presidential candidacy of the Libertarian Party in 2028. Like if you want to get influence in the next administration, if you want to see someone in a cabinet position or on the transition team who is really putting like economics front and center, that's the way to do it, is to take our platform and use it. And so they're very interested in working with us.
Well, let me ask you how that, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Obviously, I know what the answer is going to be because we've talked about it as a board and all that. But like somebody who's a skeptic and, looking at the last LP presidential candidate or, looking at the history of the LP, you guys are losers. You can't get on the ballot in all the states. You only got 2% or whatever. So what good would it do to have, I don't know, Robert Breedlove or somebody like that on the LP ticket? What's the big deal? How's that going to influence anything?
Well, it's not about being on the ballot in all 50 states. It's about pressuring the two major parties to adopt your positions and seeing who will come closest, and make a bet, make a deal. If you will do A, B, and C, make it part of your platform, make a public commitment, put me on the transition team, whatever, I'll drop out and endorse you.
Yeah.
Like that's the way to do it. It's what Kennedy did. We saw it happen.
Yep.
We played a role in it to a certain extent. And so we should be doing this over and over again. And right now, it's like the GOP is the one that we would probably be working with, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. No. It's whoever is willing to work with us and elevate libertarianism and make that a part of their deal. So, and also like with the way the last convention turned out, like it shows you how easy it would be to come in and just snatch that thing.
Yeah. Somebody, I don't know if it was Dave Casey or somebody, like Elon had tweeted earlier in the week about starting a new party and like somebody tweeted like, hey, you can just buy the LP for a couple $100,000 or something.
Yeah, like a cool million.
Yeah.
It's really probably less than that. It would be less than that if they used our institutional knowledge, the Mises Caucus, and learn from what we told them. Because I believe, there were so many people out there who would say, hey, I got this thing, but there's a lot of third-party scammers out there.
Yeah. Well,
I found it really interesting, by the way, that Musk did not bring up the Libertarian Party. It's such a mess. There's so many.
Well, it's been effectively gatekept.
Yeah.
Like when you see the James Weeks and the Star Child people pop up in photos, like that is the late stage product of COINTELPRO tactics. You don't like the op runs itself at this point. Yeah. It was successful and the op runs itself. Those people scare off Elon Musk and they know, and they're very happy about it.
I never use that term gatekeeping in my head, but I've talked about that concept a lot of like, for a lot of people, it is a club and a hobby and not like a mission. Like, I don't like politics. I don't want to have to be involved, but my sense of justice and just like wanting the world to be a better place is what got me involved. And I know there are a lot of people involved with the LP who, kind of straddle both, like they do the hobby part, but they do still do good work. But you're right. It is almost gatekeeping. They want the parliamentary society stuff, and I've seen it up close, and it's just baffling. Like, who wants to go to meetings where we talk about bylaws all the time
It's
and
model UN.
never get anything done? Yeah, it's
It's
exactly.
model UN. You don't win elections, so you win internal elections and internal arguments over bylaws and rules. It's like if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons and you had a dispute about the rules, and so someone said, okay, next week before the real meeting, we're going to have a rules meeting.
Yeah.
And instead of playing D&D, you start to just play rules. That's what the Libertarian Party is. They never play the real game. They play bylaws.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a running theme on this podcast. We even mentioned it some last week. So when you're talking to the Bitcoin community, the Maha community, because you are pretty plugged in those things, and people, I would think, are kind of aware of just that. So like, in addition to the gatekeeping thing, but like, what kind of response do you get both positive and negative when you would mention to somebody wanting them to seek our nomination or get involved one way or another? What do you hear on one hand and on the other hand from them?
So people are very interested. They think it's a really cool proposition. People are also very engaged still in what's going on in the administration. They're heavily invested in the work that Kennedy's doing in HHS. They want to be helping. They're a little all over the place. And so our 2-year convention timeline is not really their timeline.
Yeah.
So, what I have to do is work to instill a sense of long-term planning, low time preference behavior in a lot of these activist groups. Now, Bitcoiners get that.
Yeah.
Because they're all diamond hands, hodl, like they understand the long-term strategy, but at the same time, they're so long-term that they're like, oh, why worry about that now? Worry about it later. And I'm like, you gotta get in early.
Yeah.
But there is an interest. There is definitely an appetite.
Yeah. And it is really amazing, like what Mike was able to do with the Mises Caucus, and then you and I and others jumping on at different points, and what we've been able to do. Like, I even think about the New Orleans convention in 2018, which, that was, I wasn't there, but I heard all about it. And, we really didn't have a shot at anything there.
We were a little over 20%, like maybe 24%.
And then at Orlando, we were 40, and that was with the bogus online participation because of the COVID foolishness and all that. And so after Orlando, we were like, okay, I know we can do this. And, we have spent a lot of time and money, but compared the investment, the Mises Caucus is truly grassroots. It's people digging into their couches for money. And I've never seen people work harder, and we don't have big angel people coming in writing checks and all that stuff. So if somebody like that wants to put, that's what I'm saying, because we have the ground game, we have the blueprint, and we need a little more momentum and help. So
so I have shifted, to really working closely with the Bitcoin community. The money's there. They're also hurting. They need our help. They need my help specifically, reaching the administration and diplomatically, in a very friendly way, saying, oh, please remember, these commitments you made. Operation Choke Point 2.0 is not over. Biden's war on your economy is still going on. And they're very appreciative of that, So I think there's a very good opportunity that some of them could invest in us in the near future.
Yeah. And we do, I'll put the link up on the screen in a minute, where you can give to Mises PAC. And you can donate in Bitcoin. Unfortunately, the FEC requires that we immediately convert it to Federal Reserve notes. But obviously we really believe in Bitcoin and all that. So I'm getting the link up now while one of you guys else say something, but yeah. Go ahead.
I had this, when I thought we were going to be talking to you last week, I written out some questions and stuff, and none of them really had to do with crypto or Bitcoin or anything like that. But I did have some things because I knew that you had been working on a list for like requests to take to the administration to
Yes.
talk to them about. And I know I believe you had that meeting or had a meeting or whatever. I think, did you take them a good list?
I did. Yeah. I mean, that's the first meeting. There's going to be several.
Okay.
We're not close enough to the midterms to like really,
Mhm.
take our final list, and things are still unwinding with foreign policy. So I know the emotions have been running hot, understandably so. Like, war is no joke. It's hellish. It's torturous for a lot of the people involved, people who lose their family members and have their lives destroyed. But the president is still working through things, and my perspective on that is I want to see what he's going to do. So that's one thing on the list. Peaceful foreign policy. The crypto prisoners thing has been brought to the attention of the administration, and they were very receptive, and we're going to stay in communication and work on it. The Department of Justice has a whole focus, like a section of them. They're focused on ending Biden's weaponization of the DOJ.
Yeah.
No joke. Like, I sat down and met with them about it, and they were very friendly and receptive to what I had to say, and said, well, get those pardon applications in. I didn't get hand waved away. So if you have been impacted by the Biden administration, you've got felony charges and you shouldn't have it, like, get your pardon application in now.
Yeah. We should do have a 1-800 number for that. Have you been injured by the Biden DOJ?
Yeah.
And of course, all that stuff goes back to, I think I'm sure, FDR did it and stuff, but like Obama and Eric Holder were really bad. They went after a lot of conservative and libertarian groups in like a way that was actually kind of proved to be basically just brazenly political.
Yeah. And they
raised
raised that too. They were like, is some of it Obama related? It's like, actually, yeah, I do have a couple that go back that far.
There's also a petition we still have going, more of a survey than a petition, on the screen, lpmisescaucus.com/midterm-demands, and talk about that. And so everybody go there, basically tell us what you think is important that we push for in the midterms, and what are you going to do with that info?
So everybody should fill out this survey. I need to hear from you what is most important to you for the midterms. These are the things that I'd like to take to the Trump administration and say, this is what libertarians want from you. Perhaps once we're done with the big, beautiful bill, if I take this list and they're interested and they want to pass things and work with us, perhaps some of you will hold your nose and vote for their stinky picks in Senate and Congress. I think that we have an opportunity to trade some votes to get some libertarian agenda items accomplished. And when I talk about that, I'm thinking more specifically things that cabinet secretaries and people who are in appointed positions can do, not members of Congress.
Yeah.
No offense to the 2 or 3 members of Congress who don't suck, but the rest of them are pretty much just psychopaths.
Yeah.
And negotiating with them is almost impossible. The president is trying to negotiate with them. He can't negotiate with them.
Yeah.
They're sick and twisted. But we can negotiate with the president.
Yeah. And I remember when there was talk that Congressman Thomas Massey was possibly be considered for agriculture secretary, and I sent out an email encouraging people to tweet about it and stuff, and I had a couple of people like, what, are you crazy, and him lose his seat in Congress? But realistically, and of course what's going on with Trump is a separate issue, and it's not bad to have Massey in Congress, but to have somebody like that in charge of a cabinet department to help dismantle it, as far as real world impact,
you just get so much more done as a cabinet secretary than you can as a member of Congress.
Right.
It's just and I can't divulge every detail from every meeting I have, but there are multiple people I talk to in senior positions in the administration, not just 1 or 2. And that's where the real budget cutting happens. That's where, rooting out a lot of these horrible people, that's where it happens. That's also where I think a lot of blackmail and things of that nature happen, and why we haven't seen Epstein files and things of that nature. There's scary stuff that goes on, but the more good people we get in and the more we back up the good people who are in there, I think the better the outcome is going to be. It's so much easier to work here than it is through Congress. They're just, they have like handlers. It's not just AIPAC either. They have like a list of handlers. That's really who's representing you in Congress. It's lobbyists.
And, even if like the leadership of each house who controls all the rules on, what can get introduced and who can offer an amendment and all that, like, it's not like the Boys State or Model UN that people remember from civics class, where everything is done fairly and everyone has an opportunity to put something up to get voted on. So I think most of us know this.
It's not like the Libertarian Convention where I call on everybody at the mic. That's not.
Yeah, I still, that to me is like, I think I had a dream once that I was chairing a convention, and that was a nightmare. Like, just to have to handle all this stuff. That's ridiculous.
I'll never do it.
Here's a question. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen. From a YouTube viewer. Are there currently any figures in the Bitcoin community that are standout potential candidates for an LP 2028 ticket? And that same goes for Maha. So talk about Bitcoin first, but
Robert Breedlove, he'd expressed a little bit of interest previously. David Bailey, that would be awesome. There are two. There's a lot. But if you look at the leadership of these companies, Bitcoin Magazine, Kraken, look through anybody in a position of leadership. People from the Bitcoin Policy Institute. I was just there at their summit last week. I think there's a lot of potential there. And in Maha, I have not spoken to him about this yet. I think Del Bigtree. I think he's got charisma. He's well funded. He's well connected. He's got a thick skin. I'd like to see Del Bigtree as a POTUS or BPOTUS candidate in 2028, paired up with someone like David Bailey or Robert Breedlove. It would just be like, we would crush it. We would crush it.
I think Del would be great. I don't know a lot of the detailed information about his politics or anything. I'm sure as a libertarian, there would be some reason I could find it. He's not a libertarian, but that's the case for all of us, so that's fine. But I have interviewed him, and he's a good talker. He's really good. He'd be great up in front of an audience. He is great up in front of an audience. He's someone you can put on camera and won't embarrass you. And I think he meets a lot of criteria for sure. He knows his stuff too.
What do you mean won't embarrass us? We'll be branded as anti-vaxxers. I mean,
Del,
we'll be hounded from the public square. Oh my goodness.
Del has a media background. Yeah, he's been through it. You can't ruffle his feathers. So I'd really like to see that. And then you put him with someone like David Bailey or Robert Breedlove. It's just like, that would be so good.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. And in my time in the LP, the last 10 years or so, we all have a little bit of this in us. Like back when I was in Ohio and on XCOM there and chair of Central Committee, people are always like, oh, we need to get Drew Carey to run for Senate.
No.
It's like, why? First of all, why would Drew Carey do that? And second of all, so like we all have a little bit of like a fantasy thing of like, oh, the right person with $1 billion doing this, but
it's got to be people who are already like willing to get involved in politics.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like David Bailey has already been very political, like he had a lot of conversations with Donald Trump. He also advocated very aggressively for Ross Ulbricht. Basically what happened is I'm like, hey, you should free Ross Ulbricht. And Donald Trump asked a bunch of people their opinions. And David Bailey is someone who was like, definitely do that, and advocated on behalf of the Bitcoin community's votes. So you have to be like, it's a lot. And I think we've discovered this multiple times. I can't remember the guy's name, but back in the late 80s or early 90s, there was a talk show personality who was interested in running for the Libertarian Party nomination. Not Howard Stern. It was someone similar to him, though. And he just basically got scared off by how toxic our politics were.
Yeah.
Someone like Dell, he's like, yeah, I know, because he's already been through it.
Well, and the thing that people don't realize is like how easy we're so close to driving all those people out of the party. We're this close.
It's going to take like another $50,000.
Yeah.
That's not very much money.
And unfortunately having to go to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
But that's okay. We can make it a fun trip out of it. I may end up doing an event, close to the convention.
Actually, I joke about that, but like once you get there and hang out, like the Mises Caucus culture, like everybody I've met has been so great. And it's just like, it is like meeting family for the first time. It's so if you haven't been to a national convention with us, it's next Memorial Day weekend in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it's going to be fun. And it's another long slog toward our goals there. But I think this time I don't know how much I want to say, but like we're I'll let you pick it up from there, Angela. I don't want to go too far, but
we just need delegates. Yeah. We need delegates. I think that one of the lessons I've learned is burnout is real. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have run some of our best activists a little bit ragged. So we're looking for more people to help us show up. I don't need you to get involved and attend every monthly meeting and do all of the crap in the LP that the people around you are going to want you to do. Yeah. I need you to go to your state convention and your national convention. That is it. That's all I need.
Yeah. Here's a comment from Greg Smith, who is probably within like 5 miles of where I am right now. He's here in Tennessee. And so forget national candidates. So like, we're not going to win national races, but we can use the national races to leverage our position in the same way we did with this election, in a very small way. But like, if you have a lever and a fulcrum, you don't need a whole lot of, right. You can do a lot with the little. So like with the national, even state level races, maybe conceivably we do the leverage thing, like what people in Colorado came up with, but then we still keep working PDR on the local level. We try to win those local winnable races. We do the coalitions, we do the getting things on the ballot locally. And so it's a two-pronged strategy. We're never going to get on the debate stage anytime soon. At the national level, we have to do the leverage thing and not pretend that we're going to win those races, but we can win the local races. And so that's why we're still doing PDR as far as at the county level and below, but the sort of national issues leverage thing, like what we were talking about with a more high profile candidate, to leverage for a cabinet spot or something like that. So we're never, the Mises Caucus, we're never giving up on the PDR and the local stuff because that's really at the core of it. But as far as the air game, the leverage strategy that Angela and that we've kind of tried to do a little bit the last year or so, that's started to work. So I think we got to keep doing that.
Here's what we need. We need more bodies. People who want to be active in campaigns and like be boots on the ground and make a difference and get people elected, focus on local. If you only have a few days of the year that you can give us, you're very short on time, give us a state convention and give us a national convention. Yep. And I don't care, don't worry about PDR if it stresses you out to think about doing activism every day or every week. We don't need it. We can triage if we have more numbers. If you are passionate about getting people elected, you want to do phone banking, you want to knock doors, do PDR, do local races, and it doesn't matter, by the way, if you live somewhere where no one local is running, you can volunteer by helping with a website, you can do text banking, there's a ton of stuff that you can do. You can design the flyers, you can purchase the flyers. You can mail them to local volunteers. Like there's so much stuff you can do. We just need more bodies. We get more bodies, we get more things done. We will move the presidency in the right direction in 28. We will get people elected in your local town in 26.
Yep. And I'm going to put my email address up there. It's just Aaron, AARON at MisesCaucus.com. So you can email me if you want to get involved. Tell me where you live or what your skills are, and I'll hook you up with the right person. I'm also going to put up the donate link here in a bit. I like the term contribute better because donation, it's more like charity and I'm writing the check and I'm not involved, but contributing either monthly, recurring or a one-time thing. It's, it's to, we paid for a lot of hotel rooms and plane tickets the last couple conventions and stuff like that. So if you can't go or you're not sure whether you can go, you can help us budget and stuff like that. Yeah. So please do that. I'll put that link up here in a second while we're talking, but I really mean it. So if anybody has questions or wants to get connected or questions, if you want to donate a big amount of money to the super PAC, email me and we'll make that happen.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take it in Bitcoin too. Like we'll take it however you want to give it.
Super PAC is unlimited. You could give us $1 billion if you wanted to. So we will take your phone call.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah.
The way that here's how we got Ross free. Michael Heiss starts the Mises Caucus. Mm-hmm. All of us continue to push the hamster wheel. We reach critical mass. I get elected. We come upon a black swan event, right? A very strange election year. I make a deal with Donald Trump. Ross gets out of prison. And that was with Chase Oliver as a candidate. Yeah. That was with a lot of burnout and exhaustion. That was with a really hard year. You want to see us do something amazing? Help us make it a really good year, because that's what we did with just like an absolute shit hand dealt to us. We could do so much more if more people are willing to get involved just a little bit. You can contribute. You can sponsor delegates. You can show up once a year. You could show up twice a year. Like the options are like limitless. So just think about like, what do you want to see in the world? What do you want to see somebody like Kennedy again as the next cabinet secretary and like really go hard on medical freedom and finish what he started? Do you want to see someone like Thomas Massey in a cabinet position? Like you could do it. You just have to help us. Like it's actually doable. And I think that's really exciting. And it should be really motivating. Should be really motivating to think like you can basically get a cabinet position for like less than $1 million.
If you had Elon Musk on the phone or at the dinner table and he told you, hey, I'm going to start this new party, what would be your pitch to him in regard to what we're doing?
I would say
specifically to him.
Yeah, I would say you should not start over from scratch. And I would explain why it takes 3 election cycles to get up and running. And that, quite frankly, like if you view the debt as an existential threat like he does, you don't have 3 election cycles, you have 2.
Yeah.
And you won't make it in 2, you'll make it in 3. Start with the LP, do a rebrand if you want, gut it and leave 25%. And I know that's hard for some people to hear, but you have to contend with reality, which is the Star Childs, the James Weeks, the toxic brand. Like if you actually want to win and not be delusional and win, you have to have some growing pains, right? Yeah. Here's a list of people to avoid, including operatives, lobbyists, petitioners. There's a long list of people who sabotage our work. They sabotaged Kennedy's work. They will sabotage all third-party efforts. Don't work with them, right? Yeah. And here are the states that are going to be the most difficult. And you think that it's going to cost this and it's going to cost 3 times it. And you're going to lose 20% of the work that you do. Like there's so much, it's such a complex system that even throwing a ton of money at it will not solve the problem. That institutional knowledge from someone who is like a true believer in your cause, that is the critical thing. That matters almost more than the money.
Yeah. And another thing that happens a lot, it happened in Ohio back in the middle of last decade when I was involved there, is like if they see a good candidate coming from the LP, or the LP getting a little too much attention, then they will just pass another law and change things immediately and
That's
take away your ballot access.
yeah. The other thing I would say is there's an element of it that needs to be a sneak attack.
Yeah.
And announcing it to build excitement and generate buzz is really good.
Yeah.
But when you are just getting your sea legs, some of it needs to be done quietly so that those people don't find out. And that happened actually in Ohio in 2024. They got ballot access on the DL. And that was probably the only way that they were going to get it done.
You know what? I didn't know. I need to look into what happened.
Yeah, there was that. Illinois tried, and the state chair at that time was not Jim Hume. He's great.
Yeah.
But Bill Redpath was the state chair at the time, and he just like he didn't work with me, and I could have prevented so much pain, and they could have been on the ballot, and you got to work together, guys.
Nate, what else is on your mind these days?
First off, my advice for Musk is not to start a new party. That I think maybe that's just something that he's saying as a threat, I guess, to maybe try and piss off Trump a little bit. Also, that he's going to start this new. He might do it. He's a crazy guy. He might do that, but probably doesn't realize all the complex inner workings that go into getting on the ballot, getting on debate stages, just setting up that entire system. I would rather him do something with the Libertarian Party if that's what he's looking for. Of course, he mentioned someone to represent the 80% of people in the middle, and I'm not sure that sounds like libertarians.
I don't even know if that's really what he wants. I think that he has an idea, kind of like how a lot of libertarians are like, everyone's a libertarian, they just don't know it yet. I think that that's what he's thinking, like with the 80% in the middle. And it's like, you don't realize what those, you want something that they will be persuaded to support, but you don't want it cooked up from their own brains.
Yeah.
I can't figure out who the 80% in the middle are. That just sounds like a compromise between the two parties, which sounds like what we already have right now.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about people that don't vote. A lot of them, I'd rather not vote anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think you're totally right. It sounds like that whole, everyone's a libertarian, they just don't know it yet, which I used to say. Probably within like a year ago, I used to say that. And I was like, no, hardly anyone is a libertarian.
They're not. They can be.
Yeah.
If like things move, 200 years ago, people were so much more libertarian because there weren't all these entitlements that existed, and everybody was like, I'll just like do my own thing and you do your own thing. But now it's like, what? I can have free money as long as I just like kind of like lord my cubicle authority over you. Yes. I want free money.
There's a whole society of people who had to take care of themselves. That sounds like a pretty libertarian system,
Well,
a lot of people are libertarians for themselves. They believe that they can be trusted to do the right things all the time, but they don't trust their neighbor. They're not a libertarian for their neighbor. And so that's really where the big divide comes in. Like, I don't need the government overwatching me, but that guy does.
Yeah. And there's another sort of thing that goes along with that is a lot of libertarians, and I'm not saying don't set up at pride parades or whatever, but like realistically, like, in the 70s when the LP started, I would think that that community might have been amenable to, a party that wants government out of marriage. And as a Christian, I don't like, my wife and I got married, went on our honeymoon, and then came back, and I would have gone without it, but my wife wanted the license. So we got the license like a month after we got married, because it doesn't matter what the county in Ohio says. But like now, with what we've seen in the last 10 years, as far as legal precedent and stuff like that, gays and that they're a protected class. So why would why would a normal person who's in a protected class who has legal advantages want like liberty in that area? So that's what we're up against.
They're like a corporate protected class now.
Yeah.
So many things are very different than they were 54 years ago when the party was founded. We're in a very different place.
Yeah. And the thing is, we don't have to convince everybody to share our ideology. I don't have to convince everybody to be a Rothbardian in order to have success in politics and to make the world a slightly better place. And maybe once in a while something big will happen. And so we don't have to convince everybody. We have to play the political game in a smart way, without compromising our principles.
Like Javier Milei showed, I think like it can be done. You need like a crazy hardcore Rothbardian to get people to like Gary Johnson vibes. If that makes sense. Like we don't really need, like, you don't have to go full Rothbard, but you have to get to Gary Johnson. And that's doable, right? He got elected as governor, by the way, as a libertarian Republican in a Democrat majority state. So, lessons from GJ. People think that those words would never come out of my mouth.
I'm shocked right now, honestly. So
there are lessons. There are lessons to learn.
I was trying to figure out if there was a joke behind this the whole time.
Well, I will stick up for Gary Johnson, especially the 2012 Gary Johnson and the first half of 2016 campaign Gary Johnson. Like I saw him on the stump in Ohio and he did great. And like he had a great message. And then I don't know, the Bill Weld
Gary
thing.
brought in people that sucked. That wasn't his intention. So I want to get like Javier Milei to bring in people like Gary. So it's like if you gotta go, like if you don't go full Rothbard, you bring in full retard. I guess that's how it works.
Hey, actually, I'm gonna
ban us from YouTube.
Make a meme out of that pretty soon.
If you don't go full Rothbard, you bring in full retard.
That's a T-shirt coming up real quick from. Well, I won't plug my T-shirts. So anyhow,
no, you can.
You should plug your T-shirts.
GodHatesFeds.com. Nice little God Hates Feds shirt for everyone. That's
FEDS.
FEDS. GodHatesFeds.com. Only it looks exactly like what you're thinking of on the shirt. I know, brilliant. You're right. It's offensive, and I got told by some of the left libertarians that I should not have that out there.
You got told by some of the feds that they were offended.
No, you could probably guess exactly who in the higher ups were like, yeah, I don't agree with putting that out there.
Well, I mean, it's a crude joke. Guess what? Feds make crude jokes too. Like if anybody's I won't send it to Nash Patel, but I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe he would laugh at it.
I think another important point, we were talking about national versus local earlier, and a lot of us are here. Like I'm here because of Ron Paul and his campaigns. Like that's where I found out about this whole thing. I was ready to just nuke the entire Middle East before I started listening to Ron Paul. And so people can change. That's another really important thing. For all of us to remember, including me, when I say, hardly anyone's a libertarian, that people can change if they hear the right message at the right time. And so it was so important that he was able to get up there and talk to so many people. That is also why I do hate to see people going after the next generation's Ron Paul, who I think is in Congress right now, not getting a lot of stuff passed, kind of like Ron Paul, but could eventually spin that into a nice messaging later on in the future. I hate to think what would have happened if Ron Paul would have got knocked out in like 1999 or something, or 2000. Would I even be here, or would I be just super pumped about bombing Iran right now? I'm not sure. But that's why it is important to get people up there nationally. Even Gary Johnson, I hear Gary Johnson brought a lot of people into the party, and I'm sure many of them were really great people.
Very fine people, hoax.
Yes, they're fine people. And and that people can change, because I don't know if you guys have been libertarians your entire life, but I haven't. It's been a pretty short amount of time, actually, and so we should all keep that in mind when we're talking to people
Yeah.
online, because they could be open to the right message at the right time.
Yeah. Well, you did mention, kind of allude to Massey there, and I think it's interesting, the whole Trump wanting to primary him. I think that I don't know what to think about that. I don't know how that would go. I would think that if this were 1999, he might have a hard time, but like with being able to have a Twitter account and
Mhm.
having people like us and the Bitcoin community and different people, you know, you don't have to go through the normal channels and buy TV ads and get
Yeah.
TV interviews and stuff anymore. So like challenging Massey might be like, it might almost, I've always thought that like all the attacks on Trump since 2015 have just made him, he's like this big electric energy monster. Like the more crap they throw at
Mhm.
him, the more powerful he gets. And
Godzilla. He's like Godzilla.
right, yeah.
Radiant. Yeah.
And but he might be creating like a Mothra in Thomas Massey, that like the same thing might happen, that
Yeah.
or it's like the Streisand effect. Like most people haven't heard of Thomas Massey, but oh, why is Trump going after Thomas? Oh, Thomas Massey's pretty cool. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing is just unfortunate. You know, my perspective on it is you know, I love so many of the things Donald Trump has done. You know, they're not all libertarian. You know, I didn't say I love everything. I feel like they're both technically right. Like, you know, Thomas Massey is right about the debt. You know, I think Donald Trump is right about he's got to like get this particular thing with immigration through, or we may not have a country in. And we may have all Mamdanis in 2 election cycles. That's kind of frightening. So it's not a good situation, and I don't know how to get out of it. Like I don't know what the right answer is. What I would like to see is for, you know, Thomas Massey to be okay, and I think that's a role that we can play.
Yeah.
I actually think he's fine. I think his district is so solid and he's so beloved that he's fine.
Yeah.
But playing the diplomat and trying to help them resolve that is a role, you know, that I'm potentially going to try to step into and see if we can iron that out.
Yeah.
Because he's got a great voice. I would like to see him though in a cabinet position in the future where I think he can actually enact some of his like amazing ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I think he'd be a great presidential candidate on 2 of the 3 parties that we've mentioned on the podcast tonight. Like I think he's just incredibly brilliant and has a good sense of humor, which again, for people under the age of 70 or 65 or whatever, like again, it's a new world as far as how, I mean, we just had the president use the F word a couple of weeks ago, and you know,
That was awesome.
it's a new thing, and I think Massey gets it. I mean, he went on Theo Vaughn, and
Massey understands like how to connect with, I don't want to say normies in like a derogatory way, but people who are like, what would you say, salt of the earth people who genuinely have like this forgotten like common sense thing, you know, that like it's like common sense is almost kind of like lost from the general population, but there's this like still this really good like solid core group of people who just have good sense even if they're not in politics. Like he can connect with those people, I think.
Yeah, there's a great clip. Google Thomas Massey, Pete Buttigieg or whatever. I have no idea how to spell that name, but yeah, it's just type in Booty Judge and it'll come up. But there's a clip from 3 or 4 years ago or more of him, just of Massey, just like really eviscerating him on like the solar energy stuff. And this is from somebody who went to MIT and knows how all that stuff works. And so, but he just what you said, like that clip, like normal people will get that. So
yeah,
I'll bring you guys some good news, and I'll tell you why this is good news. I think there's a good chance Massey can actually get beat by whoever it is that Trump puts up there. the reason that's good news is because I also thought there was no way Trump was going to win the election. In fact, I said that for like a year before the election on my show all the time, that he had no chance of winning whatsoever. And like a week or two before the election, I was like, yeah, no way. It's not going to happen. And then he ended up winning pretty handily. So the good news I have for you guys is that I actually think Massey has a good chance of getting beat in this election. And so that means
And
we're good.
you're
We're good.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't worry about it.
That's like me. Sometimes I put Cincinnati Reds players on my fantasy team. I bench them on my fantasy team, which means they will have a good game in real life. So, so yeah, betting against
the MAGA base is strong, and that's the scary thing. I mean, there are just
they
people,
are.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's something.
Yeah.
It is really something. And
they are strong. They are strong, but they really like Massey, you know, like he's like it's not like totally accurate to say he's not MAGA. He's like in that gray area, you know, but he has a lot of fans.
Yeah.
No,
and Marjorie Taylor Greene is with him on this.
Yeah. He's and so is Elon Musk, I guess. And so that's that could end up being a pretty good deal for him too, if the only problem is money and not just a lot of people are gonna, you know, vote for Trump's endorsement. You know, it sucks. The whole situation sucks.
It sucks. It sucks. Praying that it gets resolved, you know, praying that I don't know, somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene can help smooth it over.
And who knows, once the budget thing is over and you know, it's amazing how well this time last week we were just talking about Nate and I were how like last week we said, hey, 48 hours ago we thought we were going to be in full on in war with Iran, and then you know, so like things can happen and change overnight. So who knows, that this might all blow over. But
it's like I didn't say anything, but then it's like sometimes I hear things and I can't say anything publicly, so I just kind of look like this like Trump standing asshole, and I'm like, trust the plan. And they're like, no, we don't trust the plan.
I know that you said you only had about an hour tonight, Angela. If there's anything else you want to talk about or plug or circle back on before we head out,
please go to freerogernow.org.
Okay.
Roger Ver needs our support. One of the founders of the Bitcoin community, also known as Bitcoin Jesus, who provided seed capital to Kraken, XRP, Bitcoin.com, just a stalwart defender of the medical freedom community. You know, he was a silent funder of just so many really important causes for liberty over the past 20 years. Please sign his petition.
So do I have that correct on the screen? Just freerogernow.org.
Freerogernow.org. Send it to your friends.
And there's freeiannow.org.
Free Ian Now.
Make
Sign them both. Send them around. They need your support, and I need your signature to show to the DOJ that it matters.
Okay.
It's got to matter to you for it to matter to them.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and just I think I've told you this, but if I haven't directly, and maybe not face to face, but coming back to the Mises Caucus board, taking over his chair, I really appreciate that. I did the best I could in the craziest year of my life.
Yes, you did.
I don't know if you could hear. I can hear in the back of I can hear the boys crying through this whole time and laughing and all that. So it's been great, and I'm just grateful that you're back and doing the work, and I'm back to being able to do some of the stuff that I like to do a little better. So I'm excited about between now and Grand Rapids and what's coming after that. So thanks for all the time you're putting into this again.
Thank you for having me back, and thanks for holding the fort down. And thanks for co-hosting, Nate. We need to be doing this every week. So
I'm excited about it. I was happy to even, you know, be mentioned or considered because you guys all do really great work. And tonight I really just did the best job I could in trying to not talk at all, so you guys can talk. And so I think it's my best job yet.
No, you should. I should talk less. You should talk more. We'll work on that. But I thought yeah, I really like your work, and we'll stop congratulating each other and go relax. But yeah, one last thing, takehumanaction.com if you want to get on our mailing list and
Do it.
all that. But all right, thanks guys. We'll see y'all later.
Good night.
Yeah.